content that I'm going to be sharing here with you tonight can be truly transformative for you. The same as somebody who hops in a car and they've never driven a car. Most of us wake up in our lives realizing that we're in a car that's on a highway going 110 kilometers an hour, but we don't know how to drive. And most people are on the back seat and their hands are not even on the steering wheel. And so it's so important for me and for you to take this seriously so that we do get our hands on the steering wheel, so that we do get in that driver's seat, so that we do take on full responsibility for what we're doing here and what we're creating in our lives. Now, I do want to ask you all to please type into the message box what actually brought you here tonight. And you can also type into the Facebook if you're watching from Facebook or from the Zoom. If you haven't got a pen and paper, then you're very naughty and you're in big trouble and you've been procrastinating on that, and that's why we're here. But if you can grab a pen and paper, then that will be very valuable for you. All right. So I would like to ask you all to type into the chat box. And if you don't know how to do that, then write it down on your pen and paper. Why are you here? What do you want to get out of tonight? And if you are driving in your car, which some are saying so, then please just speak it out loud to yourself. No one cares what you look like or what you sound like, but either write down in the message box or write down on paper or speak out loud why you are here. Why did you give your time to this event? What is it that you want to get out of this event? Now, I can see that some people are saying that they want to get over procrastination and stop procrastination. And of course, that's what it's about. But what I really want to know is deep down in your roots, what is it that you want to get out of this event after the event? We're going to share some truly profound information that's going to help you to transform procrastination patterns and reprogram the chemistry of your brain and body and reprogram your nervous system to release the right chemistry into your brain and body so that you can break those habits of procrastination. So that's going to happen. But what does that mean for you? If you can break that procrastination for yourself, what does that do for you in your life? Not just that you want to get rid of procrastination, but once it's gone, what does that mean for you? Let's get some leverage. What is it that's important for you to get out of tonight? So please write that down in the chat box, and I'll be going through those a little bit later. Something very important is we're going to do something that's called breath work. I'd like you to put your hand up. If you've been in Zoom before, then you'll know there's a little button that you can press to put your hand up, or you can physically put your hand up. I can see a few of you on the screen there. So just put your hand up there if you have heard of breath work before, please. And what I want to do is share with you about breath work and why that's really important. Now, some of you would have read on the pages that I was sharing with you all about how fear can trigger procrastination. Now, there's a whole lot of other patterns that can trigger procrastination, but fear is a really big one. And fear comes from that reptilian brain that's really looking for what it can eat, what it needs to fight, what it needs to run away from, and where it can find pleasure. And if we just allow the chemistry of fear to overtake our brain and our body, we literally lose access to up to 90% of our brain, and we lose up to 90% of our IQ. Now, if I'm going to give you some really what I believe is profound neuroscientific knowledge tonight, then I would like you to absorb that into 100% of your brain, not just 10% of your brain. So the purpose of the breath work is to turn on all of those parts of the brain and to cool off what we call the reptilian brain. And the reason that that's important is because we want to activate what's called the frontal lobe, this large part of our brain in the front. It's the most evolved part of our brain. It's the latest developed part of the brain. It's been bolted on in the last however many thousand years, and it takes up 40% of our brain. Now, that frontal lobe connects to every other part of the brain. But when we're in a state of fear, we knock out that part of the brain and we go into the reptilian brain, and all we're doing is looking at who do we need to fight and who do we need to run away from, and whatever little bit of pleasure we can get and instant gratification we can get, then we'll go for that. And we can get stuck in these loops that keep us trapped. So we're going to do some breath work, which is literally going to turn on this part of the brain, and it's literally going to cool off this part of the brain. It's also going to put you into a really nice, relaxed state, and it's going to give you a lot of energy. Now, A lot of you may have done some breath work in the past, and a lot of you I know they have done a lot of breath work in the past. And tonight we're going to do something a little bit different. We're only going to go for 90 seconds. I'm going to time it for everybody, and we're going to do a new breathing pattern, which is called the double pulse technique. Now, very simply, we're going to breathe in through the mouth twice, and then we're going to let that breath go, and then we just follow that pattern like waves on a beach. So I'm going to demonstrate with you, and I'm going to have a little sip of water because your mouth may get a little bit dry. And how we're going to do that, you can sit, you can lay down, you can stand, whatever's fine for you. We're only going to be doing 90 seconds, and it's going to look like this. We're going to breathe in and relax, relax. Now, as you're breathing in, we want to distend your belly and open up your chest and get as much oxygen in as we can. And as we're breathing out, we're simply letting the breath go. Now, this is going to create a lot of chemical changes. It's going to turn on and off different parts of the brain, as I said before. But most importantly is that you focus on the breath and you go for 90 seconds. You may get a dry mouth. You may feel a little bit dizzy. You may feel uncomfortable. It may be out of your comfort zone. But all of those things are normal, and all of those things are good for you. That is what we need. We're going through those uncomfortable things that may make you feel nervous or you may not want to do. And as you go through this little 90-second exercise and you push yourself to breathe, you're going to increase the oxygen in your blood. You're going to let out a lot of carbon dioxide, and you're going to really get your nervous system in your brain into the most intelligent and relaxed state that it can be. Now, enough waffle from me. All we're going to do is 90 seconds of breathing. One more time, it's the double pulse breath. So breathing in and let go. Breathing in. I'm going to time it for 90 seconds. Please, everybody, get ready and comfortable. We are starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're on 90 seconds. With me. Keep going. Keep going. Even if you feel dizzy, even if your temperature starts to change, I want you to continue to breathe and push yourself to activate the best parts of your brain and your nervous system. We're at 30 seconds, 60 seconds to go. Keep breathing in. As much oxygen as you can bring in, as much CO2 as you can bring out so that we can change the chemistry of your blood. Continue to breathe. You're over halfway. I want you to breathe in, double pulse, and let the breath go. 30 seconds to go, team. Let's go. Push yourselves. This is taking control of the steering wheel of your brain and body. This is taking control of the chemistry of your brain and your body. Continue to breathe. You've got 15 seconds. If you're still with me, you're doing awesome. Keep going for 10 more seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Take a big, deep breath in. Let the breath go. Relax and just hold the breath out for as long as it's comfortable. We're not going to force, but just empty your lungs and hold the breath out for as long as it's comfortable. And when you take a breath, I would like you to write in the chat box or write on Facebook Live in the comments, what was your own personal experience with that? Now, that was only 90 seconds, and I want you to take note of what your body feels like. I want you to take note of your thoughts. When we do this certain breathing technique, the part of our brain that continually chatters and talks and is always on your case all day long is what we call in neuroscience the default mode network. And when we do this certain breathing pattern, we knock out the default mode network part of the brain and we switch on this frontal lobe part of the brain. So I want you to take note of the mental chatter. What's your monkey mind like now? What are your thoughts like now? What are your stresses and your fears and your doubts like right now after 90 seconds of changing the chemistry of your body and your brain? Please type in the chat box. I'd love to know what's happened for you and what you've experienced. Now, I'd like to share with you a little bit of my story. As I said before, I'm sorry if you've heard my story before, but I feel like it's really important that you know who I am and that I'm completely transparent and that you know why it is that I'm talking to you and why it is that you've come here tonight. And that is because of the experiences and because of the training that I've had in my life because of those experiences. I truly believe that it's impossible for anybody to lead you somewhere where they have never led themselves or been led themselves. I used to take people for long walks and runs through the city of Sydney, and we would frequently go running through tunnels, which is illegal and terrible, so let's not tell anyone about that. However, we did do all of our research and make sure that it was completely safe, and we would run through those tunnels. However, I never, ever took anybody through any of those tunnels until I had gone through those myself. And for me, that's a really important analogy, that I can only guide you as far as I've been able to guide myself. And I can only take you through those tunnels safely and to the destination where you want to go, as long as I've been able to go through those tunnels and go to those destinations that you want to end up in. Now, that's the absolute purpose and reason for me sharing my story. I don't love sharing my story. In fact, it makes me feel very vulnerable, but I feel like that's super important for us to be vulnerable and transparent, especially in today's day and age when we have lost so much trust and so much faith in so many people and so many systems. So I'll do my utmost best to share coherently and quickly for you all, and allow you to have a little bit of insight into my life. My father was put in a boarding home when he was very young. His parents believed that that was the best environment for him to be able to grow up as a child and learn the things that they didn't have for themselves. His mother came from an Indigenous background, and his father also left home at the age of 8, and so incredibly tough lives. And so they put him in boarding home when he was 6 years old, where he was physically, mentally, emotionally, and sexually abused for many years. Now, my father then needed to cope with those things with various substances, alcohol, and behaviours, and that was the only way that he was able to cope with those things. A beautiful-hearted man, but never learnt how to untie the mess of that trauma that was created for him in those situations. Now, that led to a lot of situations that also occurred around his family. And if you know anything about generational patterns and generational memories that are even passed through the genetic code, or even generational curses is a term that some people use, then that's a very real thing. And that was experienced in my life. And I was watching all of the people around me in my childhood and seeing that they didn't necessarily have their hands on the steering wheel of their mind or their body, and they didn't necessarily have their hands on the steering wheel of their life. At the age of 14, I left home. My mother had left my father. He was impossible to deal with. And as she left, I decided that I was going to leave as well, and I was on the streets for several months. And that led me to many uncomfortable and many unsavory situations that led to me also falling into those same traps that my father and many friends and family had also fallen into. At the age of 18, I had a girlfriend that I was deeply in love with, and she had also been sexually abused, and she ended up committing suicide. And that was really a fork in the road for me in my life if I was going to continue down the path that I've been on, and that all of my other people around me that I really loved and cared for had been on. Or was I going to change the direction of my life? Was I going to take a different path? And as scary as it was, I knew that I had to take a different path. Otherwise, it was going to be a very sad and traumatized life, and probably a very short life as well. So at the age of 18, I was deeply inspired and had a lot of leverage and a lot of motivation to break free from the patterns of my brain and body that were sabotaging my success in every single area of my life. And that has led me to study the neuroscience, psychology, and behavior for over 22 years. And that's not to impress you, but more to impress upon you that I have done my due diligence in actually understanding how the brain and body works. I haven't just taken a 6-week course. It's been 22 years of trying to untie this mess. And trust me, there's still mess to be untied in there, no doubt. But I want to share with you the things that I've been able to use for myself and many thousands of people around the world. And so what I want to start to share with you now is, what is the cycle of success and failure? How does that work in our lives? It starts with our beliefs. When we have beliefs, they are the foundation of what creates our thoughts. Now, our thoughts are neurochemical events, and those thoughts create our emotional patterns. Our emotional patterns go on to affect and influence our behaviors. And our behaviors go on to influence and affect our actions. And then our actions go on to influence and affect our results, which reinforces our beliefs and keeps us stuck. We do need to evolve as human beings and a species, and we're not done. There's a famous term that says, if you're green, you grow, and if you're ripe, you're rot. And so for me, it's really important that we're always growing and evolving. But that being said, if you're very happy with that cycle, then I'd suggest that this program tonight is not necessarily for you. However, if that cycle for you is in a negative trajectory, which is suggested by neuroscience, 70% of our brain is in the negative trajectory, then there's some things that you want to change. There's some things that are being sabotaged in your life. And procrastination is only the surface of what is actually going on and why are we having these behavioral patterns that make us procrastinate. It's the beliefs that are underneath that's actually driving the thoughts, it's driving the emotions, the behaviors, the actions, and therefore the results that reinforce those beliefs. Now, tonight, what I want to share with you is how we can actually create a positive cycle for you, even not a positive cycle, but a positive upward spiral, so that we can start with beliefs that are based on facts and neuroscience tonight that will positively spiral you up to the success and evolution that you wish for yourself. Now, the way that we're going to do that is we're going to share with you actually how your brain works and where is the easiest entry point for you to grab your hands on that steering wheel and take back control over this vehicle we call our brain and body, which is how we experience our life with our five senses. Now, please just let me know if you're with me. I know I talk really fast, but there's a lot of information that I need to get in there tonight so that you've got all the tools you need to go on this positive upward spiral, which is guaranteed if you're here with me tonight. And so please just let me know if you can hear me, if you're with me, and if you understand what it is that I'm saying. If you've got questions, pop them in the chat box and I will answer those questions either later tonight or over the next couple of days, because I'm truly here to serve you. As I said in a few of my posts, I take this very seriously. And for me, it's not necessarily about you. And I can be really honest and transparent about that. The honest truth is that tonight and this program and everything that I do in my life actually is about my daughter and making sure that I leave behind a better world than what I've found. There's a famous quote from me that really resonates quite deeply, which goes, "He who plants trees, knowing that they will never sit under the shade of them, has truly started to understand the meaning and purpose of life." And I truly feel that in my bones. I get goosebumps when I think of that. And I want you to know that what I'm doing tonight is for my daughter, and you benefit from that. So as far as I'm concerned, you are part of my tribe, part of my family. And if I can help you, if I can support you to go on a positive upward spiral and trajectory for your life, then I know that not only does that make your life better, but it makes life better for all those around you. And it makes life better for everybody that you come in contact with. So selfishly, tonight is about that. Now, how does your brain work? Let's start with a neuroscientific fact. Who knows how many thoughts your brain produces every single day? Please pop it in the chat box or pop it in the comments on Facebook Live if you're on Facebook Live, and let me know, how many thoughts do you think you have a day? Write it down, say it out loud, put it in the chat box, wherever it is. Be honest. Just be really honest with yourself. How many thoughts do you think you have a day? All right, if you haven't done that and procrastinated on that, then I'm coming for you. Don't you worry. I will find you and you will be caught and we will break that procrastination together. Don't you worry. Now, neuroscience has proven that we have 70 to 90,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of them are unconscious programs and patterns that were installed by our parents, our family, our friends, school, TV, music, and our cult. Sure, our culture that's around us. I hope you're paying attention because this is really important stuff and I'm here to serve you. Now, all of that happens. The 90% of the programs that are operating inside of your brain happen between the ages of 0 to 7. It's what we call a hypnagogic state. I can highly recommend that you take notes. It'll embed that information deep into your unconscious mind. However, the way that this webinar is designed tonight is that we will actually upload all of this information into your mind and you take what you want for yourself and discard whatever it is that doesn't resonate. So out of the 70 to 90,000 thoughts per day, 90% of those thoughts are unconscious patterns that were installed by our parents, family, friends, school, and our culture, our music, our television shows that we watched. 90% of your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors, your actions, your results, and your beliefs come from the ages of 0 to 7. In fact, it actually starts in the third trimester when baby is in the womb. We start being programmed by everything in our environment. And I'd like you to ask yourself, if you're happy with 90% of your life being determined by what you learned in the ages of 0 to 7, if you're happy with that, then you should just leave now. But if you're anything like me, and in those really important ages of your life, there were some things that happened that maybe were unconscious. Maybe your parents weren't well-versed in neuroscience and psychology. Maybe your parents weren't well-versed in human behavior. Maybe that's the case. And maybe, therefore, their influences on you were 90% unconscious that was installed into them 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And if that is the case, then I would suggest that tonight is probably the most important night of your life, because this is going to be the opportunity for you to choose how to program your own brain, your own body, and your own nervous system, how to program your own beliefs that actually serve you, that actually trigger the thoughts that you want to have instead of the thoughts that you don't want to have, that actually start to trigger the emotions that you want to feel for yourself instead of feeling attacked by your emotions as if they're coming from somewhere else, but they are not. They are coming from within inside of you. So if that is you and you truly want to take control over the programs of your brain and your body and therefore how life reacts and responds to you, then please take note. Very important for you to be listening 100% right now. So your brain is producing 70 to 90,000 thoughts per day. And those thoughts are what's called neurochemical events. Those neurochemical events trigger what's called the hypothalamus to release proteins and peptides and chemistry into every single cell in your body. And therefore, those cells then start to produce the behavior, the actions, and then the results that you want in your life. And tonight, already, we've shifted the direction of those thoughts, which has shifted the direction of the chemistry of your body. And it's shifted everything inside of your unconscious mind towards what you want and spiraling upwards. Now, I'd like you to understand that out of the 70 to 90,000 thoughts a day that you're having, 70% of those, based on neuroscientific research, are in the negative trajectory, meaning that they are fear-based, they are avoidance-based, they are thoughts that are based off of this very primitive brain, profound and wonderful part of our brain that can protect us if we're being chased by a lion or we need to fight for our lives. That's a very important part of our brain. But when was the last time you needed to do that? Now, if that part of the brain is taking over your life and you're in what's called sympathetic dominance, meaning that you're in a stressed state dominance, and most of us are. In fact, it's almost impossible to avoid being in some state of sympathetic dominance. And if that is the case, then you're actually operating from only 10% of your potential. You're literally only operating from 10% of your brain. And tonight and going forward is really about teaching you how you can use this part of the brain to your advantage, but you can actually switch on all of these other much more intelligent and important parts of your brain. If we do not grab hold of this steering wheel of our lives, then we will forever be a victim of our lives. And I know from me, absolutely, that's what I felt for a very long time. I truly felt like a victim. And I had all of the beliefs and all of the evidence that could prove that I was a victim. And I want to share with you that even somebody that could have all of the excuses, not having those excuses and taking responsibility for my life and taking responsibility for my hands on the steering wheel of my car was the most profound decision I ever made for myself, and far more fulfilling and uplifting to be spiraling upwards and responsible for it than to be spiraling downwards and it's everybody else's fault. And I promise you this is the best thing that I've ever done in my life. And wouldn't you rather be the director of your movie? Wouldn't you rather be the director of your movie rather than an extra or even an observer, somebody sitting in the cinemas and watching other people's movies being played out? I'd like to suggest that tonight is your opportunity to not just get your hands on the steering wheel of your car, but become the director of the movie of your life. And you have the opportunity to do that. So the first step is switching off what we call the sympathetic branch of the nervous system. I mentioned that before. If we can't switch off that sympathetic branch of the nervous system, then we've got adrenaline and cortisol pumping through our body. And that's taking all of the energy away from our brain and from our organs and putting it into our limbs so that we can fight or so that we can run. And switching on the parasympathetic nervous system is so important to cool off these other systems, to cool off this reptilian brain and all of the natural biological processes, which in psychology and in neuroscience we call the 4Fs. If you know what they are, say them out loud or type them in the chat box. Let me know if you're watching and if you're listening properly. Who knows what the 4Fs are? I'll give you a few seconds to write it down if you haven't already. And the first one we're going to start with is feeding. One of the 4Fs is feeding. This part of the brain is responsible for trying to make sure that we stay alive and getting enough sustenance. So looking for that feeding. The next level is fighting. We've all heard of the fight-flight response. This is the fight part of the fight-flight response. We also have the flight response or the fleeing response, which is running away. And then the fourth one, can you guess, is fornicating. And in extreme cases can be a freeze response as well. We can also get that freeze response in our body where we switch off and pretend to be dead. And many people do that. They'll watch Netflix. They won't answer their phone. They won't go to their work. They will freeze in life because they feel that that's safer, because the stress and the fear that's been coming into them has made them feel like they need to do that. So what I want you to know is we've already switched off that sympathetic nervous system. We've already switched from that sympathetic branch into the parasympathetic branch, which is exactly what we did when we did that breath work. And everything that we've been talking about tonight, every single word that I've shared with you has been perfectly crafted and scripted to influence your unconscious mind so that you can take back control of these things for yourself, and so that you can stay in a calm, relaxed, confident state with 100% of your brain switched on, not just 10%, so that you can actually see how you can create your future and spiral yourself up already. Now, the next thing we need to do is create leverage. Now, leverage is the most important thing. I can't remember who the famous person it was that says this, but if you know who it was, write it down. But somebody said, I can move anything in the world if I have a lever and if I have somewhere to stand. Was it Archimedes, Plato, somebody like that? I'm not sure. I'm not that smart to remember all of those quotes. But the point is that leverage, when you have enough leverage, you can move anything in your life. You can move anything in the world, physically, mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually, if you're that way inclined. Now, if I told you to go now and do the biggest, scariest thing you've been procrastinating on lately, if I told you to go and do the biggest, scariest thing you've been procrastinating on right now, who would do it? Hands up. Right in the chat box. If you're on Zoom, then you can press that little button that puts your hand up. If you're on Facebook Live, then just let me know. If I told you to go and do that thing that you've been procrastinating on, would you go and do it now? Now, if you said yes, you're my people. I want to be around you. That is the magic to life. And it's okay if you don't want to do that. There's things throughout my day, I can tell you, there's lots of things that I don't want to do and that I can totally procrastinate on. But when we take action, I can tell you, we feel amazing. When we take action, we actually start to release the chemistry of dopamine. We get dopaminergic reactions in our brain, and we train our brain and nervous system to release dopamine, the feel-good chemical, when we take actions that are hard. If you've ever gone to the gym before or done a hard workout, then you'll know that after a short period of time, you can train your nervous system to crave exercise, which even just a few weeks ago may have been something that you were dreading and hated and feared. Within just a short few weeks, you can actually train your nervous system and your brain to release dopamine while you're doing those things and become addicted to exercise. Now, that can happen with everything in your life. That can happen with everything in your life. And I'm here to show you exactly how. So if you're the person that's going to go and do that thing that you're procrastinating on, then I suggest you go and do that. And if not now, then do it directly after we finish this talk tonight. But if you're somebody who's not really ready to do that, and now if I said to you, I've got $7,000 for every single one of you that goes and does that thing that you've been procrastinating on right now. Who's going to go and do that thing right now? I'll give you $7,000 right now to go and do that thing that you've been procrastinating on. Who's going to go and do that? If you said yes, you're my people. It's not a bad thing to break through those things of procrastination. It's not a bad thing to use motivation and leverage to go and break through that procrastination. So hands up if I told you I've got $7,000 for you right now. If you go and do the thing that you've been procrastinating on, and you've got 24 hours to go and do it, and I will give you that $7,000 tomorrow. Who's going to do it? Hands up. Let me know. I want to know. Now, something to understand about neuroscience that is very, very, very important is most easily and profoundly explained in an experiment that was done with rats. Now, to be honest, I find the experiments on rats abhorrent, but I want to share with you this experiment that was done with the rats. They were being put in a maze, and when they were in the maze, they were recorded to find how long it took for them to escape the maze. Now, all of the biometric and neurological testing was being done. They were doing brain scans and blood tests and all of that kind of stuff to see what was happening in those rats that were put in the maze or the matrix and were given a period of time to escape. And those rats took their time to escape from that maze or find their way out of that maze. And then what they did is they took different rats and put them in the maze, and they put cheese, the smell of cheese, at the end of the maze. And as you can imagine, those rats, they were able to move much more fastly, and they had much more motivation or leverage, as we said before, to be able to find their way out. Now, what was really interesting is that on the third round, they had the smell of cat put in behind, as well as the smell of cheese at the front. And of course, what do you imagine happened? These rats escape the matrix faster than any of the other rats throughout the experiment. And what we found was that fear is also a very healthy leverage of motivation. We've been taught in our cult, or culture, if you like, whatever you want to call it, we've been taught in our cult that we don't have control over these things, and that we should be afraid of things, and that we should even be afraid of fear, and that fear is bad and we should always be positive. And I'm here to say, no, for want of a better word, trying to be very appropriate now, I've had a baby, for want of a better word, no, that is not the way that it's meant to be. Fear is a biological process that is there to serve us, to support us, to guide us, to protect us. Only if it's unconscious can it be a dangerous thing, just like a rocket fuel. If you don't know how to use a rocket fuel and you flail it all around and light a match, you're going to burn everything down. But if you know how to use rocket fuel, and if you know how to put it into a rocket, then you can use that rocket fuel to blast you up into the moon and into your dreams and anywhere you want to go. The fuel is exactly the same, but it's how we choose to use it. It's how we channel it. It's how we use it to our advantage. So fear can be our good friend. It can be our good motivator or our leverage. Now, what I want to do is I want to do a little experiment with you. I want to share with you something that has had a very profound effect on my life. I want you to grab a pen and paper. I've given you plenty of time to get a pen and paper. If you procrastinated on that, then you're in very big trouble. You're going to get a double breaking of your procrastination over the next couple of days, because I'm coming for you. I've made an absolute commitment to all of you that you have showed up tonight, and I'm going to deliver on the promise of breaking your procrastination, and you trust in me. Even if you don't want to break the procrastination, we're going to break it. That's how it's going to be. Now, take your pen and paper, and I want you to draw a large square, a perfect square. I want you to try and get a perfect square. If you've done box breathing with me before, then this should be deeply embedded into your nervous system, and you should be able to draw a perfect square. Now, if it's not perfect, that's totally fine. I want you to do 10 lines across the square. So you've got your square, and you're going to draw 10 lines across the square. Very quickly now. Doesn't have to be perfect, because as we know, if we try to find perfection, it's an impossible target, and therefore we never really even try, and that leads to a lot of procrastination. So draw those 10 lines. Once you've done that, I want you to draw 10 lines across. So we should have a grid, a box with 100 squares inside. Now, who knows what the average lifespan of a man is? I know what my average lifespan is as a man. It's 76 years old for a man. That's the average lifespan. For a woman, it's a little bit longer, and that is 86. We won't go into that. That's a total another webinar. But I want you to, if you're a woman, I want you to black out the first 14 squares at the bottom of your large grid. I want you just to scrub out the first 14 squares. And for men, I want you to do the same, and you're going to block out the first 24 squares at the bottom of the box. I hope you're all following along with me. This is a very important process for you to be able to do, for you to be able to get the results that you want, and for you to be able to reprogram your brain and nervous system and break free from the patterns of procrastination. We are retraining the chemistry of your brain and body right now. So please follow this process. You should have a large box. You should have 10 lines vertically. You should have 10 lines horizontally. You should have 100 boxes in there. If you're a woman, you should have blocked out the first 14 boxes at the bottom of the box. And if you're a man, you should have done 24. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to go to the top of the box, and I want you to block out every year of your age. So if you're 40, you're going to block out, or 41, which I am, very old now. I want you to block out all of those boxes up to 40 or 41 or 30, or if you're 18, I think we had some 18-year-olds on here tonight, then do that now, please. Please follow this process. And what you'll see in front of you is a non-biased projection of your life and what's left if you're lucky. Now, I don't take this exercise lightly. I challenge you to truly look at the honesty of your life and know that life is not guaranteed. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. Our next breath is not guaranteed. But if you're lucky, what you see in front of you is the life that you have left to make the most of it. I want you to hold on to this piece of paper, put it somewhere where you see it every day. Whether you put it on the mirror when you brush your teeth or put it on the roof when you wake up in the morning, that is going to be a powerful motivating factor that's going to create leverage in your nervous system every single moment of the day. Are you wasting time, or are you making the most of it? It's so important that you understand this. Now, My experience has been wide and varied, and I run workshops and seminars for corporates. I've done it around the world before the pandemic came, and we're starting to get back into the flow of those things. And I would have companies that would pay $10,000 a day, $30,000 for a weekend. And in those companies, we would totally transform them to be able to not just break free from their procrastination, but to take control of their brain and their nervous system so that they can experience their fullest potential as a human being. And when they are fully operating at their fullest potential, magical transitions start to occur in the world around them. And that is why corporates will pay that amount of money, because they know that that is a small investment for them to be able to achieve their goals in the future, whether they be financial or whatever it may be. Now, there's a reason I'm sharing that with you. And that reason is I've got a very special gift for you. If you're still here with me now, please put your hand up. If you've walked away from the screen, this is not for you. You must hear what it is that I'm going to say to you now. If you're here with me now, if you've listened through all of my waffle, all of the big words that maybe or may not make sense to you, doesn't really matter, because those words affect your unconscious mind specifically. I'm trained to be able to do that. And the way that I'm doing it is a way that you've asked for, because you've already set up what your goals are. And so all you're doing is using me as a tool, just as you'd listen to a YouTube video, to be able to direct yourself to where it is that you want to go. So that process has already taken place, and I really want to commend you. As you know, I take this very seriously, and this is a very important thing for me to be doing in my life right now. And so I'm truly grateful if you've gotten to this point where you're still listening with me. And if you are still here with me, then I want you to know that this is not it. The webinar is not it. And you don't have to pay me $10,000 a day or $30,000 a weekend. In fact, I'm going to give you more than $7,000. I'm going to give you 5 days of my life. And you and me are going to break through your procrastination. And we are going to break through the belief systems that have been driving the thoughts, that have been driving the emotions, that have been driving the actions and behaviors that's been creating the results in your life. And we are going to create the beliefs that you want, that create the thoughts that you want, that create the emotions that you want, that create the behaviors and actions and results that you want, that gives you everything you want in your life, and you will be spiraling upwards. You will not be able to stop it. And if you have ever experienced procrastination, where you feel like you're sliding down into the pits of hell, then you'll know that that momentum can be very difficult to break. The same is true for the positive. The same is true for the upward spiral. Once you get that momentum, it's impossible to break. So for you that are still listening here with me right now, not if your computer's on just to show that you're here, or you've gone away and had a cup of tea or a wee, or you thought something else was more important, that's totally fine. But for you that are still listening here now, I'm going to work with you for 5 days. You're going to get 5 days of my life. You're going to get 22 years of my training, my knowledge, my experience. And I'm going to help you to break procrastination like I've broken for myself and for many, many hundreds of people around the world over the last 22 years. So if that's something you want, please put it in the chat box now. Or if you're shy to do all of that kind of stuff or can't find the chat box, then you send me a personal message. And I guarantee you in 5 days, we will have you on a positive upward spiral that will not be able to be broken unless you want it to be. I've truly enjoyed tonight. It's been a long time since I've run a webinar or spoken in front of people over the internet. And to be honest, I was a little bit afraid. I wanted to make sure that I did a good job. I've been diligently taking notes. As you can see here, it's been nonstop for days planning this event for you. And I want you to know that this is not it. I want you to know that this is just the beginning. And please, if this is you, then you send me a message. Nobody else is going to get this. Only the people that have listened all the way to the end are going to get this gift of 5 days of my life. So if that's you, put it in the chat box, send me a personal message, and I'm going to work with you for free for 5 days. And we are going to get you on that positive trajectory where you're going to go to the moon, baby. You're going to get everything you want, I promise you. So thank you for your time tonight, guys. It's actually way over time, much more than what we expected. I'm sorry about that. I hope that you got value tonight. And if this is something that you want, and if you've been here all the way, then this is for you. I promise you. You've been here for a reason. You've come here for a reason. And I'm committed and dedicated for the next 5 days to work with whoever's come all the way to the end. And we're going to break through all of those old patterns that you no longer want. And I'm going to teach you how to create the patterns that you want so that you can do it for your future as well. You can do it for your kids, and you can do it for the people that you truly love and care for. I truly love and care for you. If you've come all of this way, you are my people. You belong here. And we need to work together, because together we can be so much stronger. We're meant to be in communities and tribes. We're not meant to be isolated. We're not meant to be locked down. This stuff is beyond inappropriate, and all of the science has been proven that we need to be in communities. And I want you to know that I'm here to support you over the next 5 days to make all of that happen. Thanks for your time. I love you all, and I hope to see you all soon. All the best.